Hey there, Quirrellmort. This is Eniash.
I always forget what name I choose while we're warming up the call. Well, the name comes from someone on Discord said that expect Carissa, like I keep saying that she's evil or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but she's not going to be one-dimensional. But I was confused by because she was being nice. She's evil in exactly the same way that Voldemort was evil, which isn't to say that, she can't do nice things for somebody, right? He got Harry that book after all. The Diary of Francis Bacon. Very thoughtful present. But he's still evil as all hell, and I think that's the kind of person we're going to see in Carissa.
Interesting. I have my thoughts on Carissa as well. I don't know. I guess we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, but first we got to start at the beginning, which is describing what this podcast is. This is It Makes Sense If You Understand Decision Theory, where you and I just sit down to discuss Kelsey Piper and Eliezer Yudkowsky's glowfic Project Lawful.
Yes, we have a Patreon where we get some money from you guys if you like us. We kick back 15% to Eliezer and Kelsey because we think this is how IP law should work, and we are the change we want to be in the future. It makes sense if you understand decision theory. Thanks for supporting us if you do.
Yes, speaking of Patreons, Ask Who put out, I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but had the first couple hours of the book on AI-generated audio, and it was awesome, but it turns out that it gets expensive pretty fast. If anyone wants that project to continue, check out the link in this episode's description for Ask Who's funding request for that project. It's patreon.com AskWhoCastsAI.
Excellent. I really love the user community that we have here. A bunch of people tell us where to read up to. Keiko has that giant project that he supports. Ask Who is, in addition to helping coordinate a lot of these people, also doing the audio AI project. Like, this is the sort of buy-in that makes something really fun.
It really is. I'm actually surprised at the level of enthusiasm we have from, what do you call it, buy-in from listeners. I figured this would be too niche to get anyone's interest, but I'm glad people are enjoying it, so it makes me happy.
I think things that are ultra niche have a higher rabidity quotient in their fan base, I guess. I don't know if that's the correct term, but the fans are more hardcore, so they get more involved. And definitely a part of that is the fact that it is more niche. It tickles a more particular thing in people, and there's just less other people coming in and crowding in stuff, so the people who are really into it can shine more.
Yeah, and the more particular thing that's getting booped, the less dilute the boop is, right? So
yeah.
I remember Keltham called it getting booped, and now it's ruined for me forever.
Well, shall we boop some feedback?
Let's do it.
Is that the correct way to use that term?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Okay, a couple notes on Pathfinder canon. In Pathfinder canon, selling your soul doesn't actually take a soul from you. It guarantees that when you die, your soul goes to hell or whoever you sold it to, regardless of your alignment.
Yeah, we found that out in this week's reading, which was nice. I wonder, I suppose the reason that's not just done, there must be some contract, right, that has to be made. You can't just how there was that whole thing of people baptizing babies that, there was like a, whatever, Catholic home assistants, whether it's nurses or whatever, would just baptize babies and the parents were out of the room, even though the babies weren't Catholic, or the babies weren't of Catholic parents.
Yeah.
I guess you can't do that because I guess they have to get something in return, but you think you could just give them and we give you a nickel and put your little baby stamp here.
Well, the god who judges souls and assigns them to their afterlife is Pharasma, and she is one of the major gods, so I assume they have some kind of behind the scenes god contract behind all of them, and she must have negotiated one of those things like, I'm only gonna honor these contracts you sign with mortals if these and these conditions are fulfilled.
Yeah, that checks out. It kind of, I guess there has to be some limit to what was the Pharasma to her power, just because you'd think, a contract that is almost literally and quite as close as you can get to putting a gun to someone's head without actually doing it. It's like, sign here or we're going to skin you alive and then heal you and then skin you alive until signing sounds like a better idea. It sounds like she still enforces those contracts, but it's better than letting it seems like if they don't sign, they get tortured. So I guess they're all eager to sign because they're all brainwashed.
Yeah, they're eager to sign, and they do get something out of it. They all assume they're going to hell anyway, and it sounds like they're actually pretty much correct about that.
That's true. I guess, getting a brainwashed person to signing a consent form, I think, is really a convoluted subject. However, I feel like this god's doing about as good as one could be expected to do, given that she probably has a lot of other business to manage too. So,
yeah.
So that's cool.
also from Pathfinder canon, since Nethys is making more and more of an appearance in the story. Some people posted a few notes about that. Nethys is god of magic and knowledge, and linked to explosions and insanity. He gained enough power to witness all that transpired on all planes, and this both fueled his divinity and drove him irreparably mad.
Nice. Kind of like Dumbledore in Method to Rationality. He didn't really go insane, but he gave the appearance of.
That's true, and he did see all of prophecy, which is probably when that happened.
Right, exactly. Because then he's doing inscrutable things for reasons no one can figure out, and then things kind of work out for him, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's because he saw all the future as much as he could. Anyway.
Yeah. Nethys is a god of magic, torn between destroying the world with one hand and saving it with the other.
Hey, like us with technology.
Exactly. Pharasma is true neutral because she is utterly impartial in judging souls, but Nethys is true neutral because he only cares about doing new and risky things with magic and doesn't care why his followers do those things.
He's just, if you stripped out like the parts of Adam Savage that made him a human and just left like the rest, the Mythbustery part, this would be the god you get.
I love it.
What happens if we mix these together? What if it gets really big? Like,
very cool. Okay, so going into more user comments, Anna just realized that the reason Keltham wants 144 children is that Dathalon uses base 12. So that would be equivalent to Earth people saying they want 100 children. I thought that was amazing. I was wondering about that myself because due to the Jehovah's Witness nature of my upbringing, I knew that 144 was 12 or 12 times 12, and it's just a very big mythical number in the Judaic religions. The Judaic descended religions, probably all religions, honestly, due to the months of the year thing. So I was like, I wonder if we're going to find out what it is about the number 12 that their society finds so powerful and interesting if they came from some kind of Judaic upbringing too and just have forgotten about it. But no, the fact that it uses base 12, I think, is a completely sensible answer and makes sense of a number of things that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Is that Dathalani canon, or is that a speculation?
I don't know.
Because I've just been assuming that 144 was some optimally mathy number for like genetic fitness, yada yada, if you knew the math of evolutionary propagation.
There's no way that the coincidence of 12 times 12 is the same as the mathy optimal number for offspring.
That's a fair point. I mean, it may be, some rough optimal point of like, I don't know, whatever a reasonable person could be expect. It's almost your Dunbar limit.
That's a good point.
But I like the base 12 example. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess how many babies could a person be reasonably expected to have? Like 3 sounds like plenty, but I suppose people could have as many as 6 or 10. Right.
That is an insanely modern day thing to say. 3 would be low by historic standards.
Right, but from a sophisticated society like Dathalon, I don't think they'd be having people pump out a baby a year for 15 years.
Well, no, probably not. I guess 3 to 4 would be reasonable.
That's sort of what I was thinking. But then I started to think of how many spouses that would be for him. And then maybe that'd give him
that would be 1 spouse.
Right. Well, then if you want 144 kids.
Oh, okay, I see, yeah.
Yeah, so then he'd be looking at like what? 50-ish? A little under 50?
Yeah.
Which might give him a different wife every week if he got bored. It almost
that's one way of looking at it.
But that's a lot more explanation than base 12, so I like that answer.
Yes, and also I think Keltham was thinking mainly about fertility treatment drugs. Like, I'm not sure even if people in Dathalon have natural pregnancy in as much as they choose to have kids and then pick among the best sperm and eggs that they have and implant that.
Honestly, I could totally imagine a future where unethical might be further down the road, but certainly where it's like deemed irresponsible just to have natural pregnancies.
I know at least one. I don't want to say movement, maybe just couple that believes exactly that and is trying to normalize that. That having natural pregnancy is only a thing you do if you really have no other option because you're that poor. And the morally correct thing to do is to use IVF and get, better babies.
That said, I wouldn't say something that you only do if you're that poor, and I would say something that you only do if you're not that rich, because I think IVF is very expensive.
If you were to have a kid, would you not plan to at least save up some money for their eventual education after they get out of high school?
Well, I wouldn't, but the average person would, right?
The average person would, and that education is likely to be far more expensive than IVF is.
Yeah, I think for some reason I've got the rough order of like $30,000 in my head for IVF, which is no small change, but that's also just some number that's coming to my brain, so I'm not sure if that's based on anything. But
IVF cost in Colorado is $20,000 roughly.
I was in the rough ballpark.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're right, but also that'd make a pretty cool. Used to make a cool down payment on a house. Now it would be, a third of a down payment on a house instead of, Then again, what higher investment could you have than picking, like a healthy baby?
Exactly. This would be projected to have much greater returns than going to college, and at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, and much greater, like, just investment than, again, a third of a down payment on a house. So
yeah, the only real problem with it is that you would have to pay it while you're relatively young and you don't have a lot of money, versus college happens 20 years later when you're older and have relatively a lot more money.
When you're older and you don't have a lot of money.
Well, people tend to make more money as they get older.
No, totally. The One True Butcher says,
I continue to be baffled by you guys believing the people of Cheliax.
So free will is the ability to act in your own interests. Evil is the I like to hurt things. And then Captain Courtney says that Keltham was explicitly lied to about good, evil, and neutral.
I've gotten this comment a lot in the Discord, both after the latest episode and after the one previous to that. Like, I'm not confused about this, I don't think. I mean...
It's probably definitely me.
No, I don't think it's you either. Like, I think free will is always kind of dicey and fun to talk about, but, like, the thing that really interests me is how Keltham thinks of good and evil and how he maps his beliefs about that onto what he's being told by Cheliax. And a lot of people were saying, like, don't believe the things that the Church of Literal Hell is telling you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, obviously. But the interesting part to me is Keltham trying to translate what he thinks of these things into what they're saying and how that jives for me.
The thing with me is that they have such persuasive, or rather, like, such coherent lies ready, as if they were expecting an outsider just to pop in at any time, and they had this whole story for them. And I kind of get the feeling that their evilness is an open book to the rest of the world. So, like, they're coming at him with, like, this whole, we do see Carissa in particular doing a lot of, like, fast footwork, to, color this that way and brush this under the mat that way.
If we believe that in the normal nature of most humans, there is both good and evil, for a society to be completely dedicated to evil, they have to, in some way, dismiss the good aspects of a person and divert those and explain them away. Like, if there's good and bad in everybody, then an evil society is going to have to find some way to deal with the good impulses in people. And this is how they've done that. Much like in a good society, we got to find some way to deal with the evil impulses that people have.
That's a good point. All right, so thanks for letting me jump in. What did Knave Motif have?
Knave Motif says that Keltham was sanctioned back home for being neutral, so is conditioned with the knowledge that good sees him as wrong. Carissa guides him to conclude he is evil. They are lying to him about the difference between neutral and evil. I really like this because, again, I was raised Jehovah's Witness, which is very much the same kind of culture, where there is a select group of very small people who are actually good, and literally everything else outside the religion is evil, and that there is no neutrality. There is, you are either with us, Jehovah's Witness, or you are against us, and you are part of Satan's order in the world. And so I have a very strong inbuilt instinct that if you aren't going along with good, there is something evil about you. And therefore, I didn't even question this. It just seemed like, oh yeah, obviously, Keltham isn't sacrificing himself for the advancement of his society. That translates as evil because it's obviously not the good maximizing thing, and I'm on board with that. So I think there was a major blind part in me about that. I'm still not entirely sure where that distinction is, where that line lies. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm so interested in Keltham struggling through these things and trying to map his concept of what is pro-social, what is better for the flourishing of the group versus the human individual, and how that translates to good and evil. And I really like his thoughts about this much more than just the simple D&D, good is people being nice to each other, and evil is people liking to hurt each other. Because, that's dead simple. We learned all that shit when we were 4 years old.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, I guess, he has an int score that is interpretable by whatever mechanics they have to read those things, right? I wonder if he has an alignment that someone could read. Because, like, he's not going to be, pure good, pure neutral, or whatever, right? He's clearly on this a mix of these things.
I think for everyone who's looked at him so far with the knowledge of the alignments in Galarian is saying that he is so lawful neutral that his ideals are literally described as the beings that live in the lawful neutral heaven.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because neutral is sort of the middle. And I guess it encompasses not just the dead center, but some band therein. Okay, all right.
The One Butcher also says, there have been so many depictions of Satan and the devil as fun trickster rebels, and tortured I do what I must, minions of God, that the words Asmodeus, devil, and Satan have lost their meaning. I actually very much agree with this, and this comes up in the reading a little bit later too. I like those depictions of hell and Satan, honestly, because evil for evil, Voldemort's sake is kind of dumb. And so yeah, I do think of these creatures more as like the Al Pacino and the Devil's Advocate kind of creature. That they have certainly lost the meaning, where you hear Satan and you no longer think, oh my god, this is the guy that delights in raping people to death and torturing things. But that's why we now have the word Voldemort. We needed a word for something that meant those things, and fortunately, pop culture has provided. Or our culture has provided, not just pop culture. This is the culture of all of us collectively, right?
I think so. I mean, yeah. I think that, Satan... I don't know who thinks Satan is, closer to like a Loki guy than, a Voldemort guy, but I'm sure that's out there. But yeah, there definitely is a bunch of dilution. In fact, there's a very popular, or I guess a very long running TV show. The show, I think, was an answer on Jeopardy last week or so. Lucifer.
Yeah, it's not that long running. I think it's only been around for like 3 years, right?
I think longer, but I know that at least at some point he's going to a therapist. That was like the question.
Oh, okay.
So like, if Lucifer's going to a therapist, then okay, he's not the guy that we all thought of from the Bible, right? So...
yeah, and the graphic novel has been around for decades.
Right. All right, so it stands elite. Dads troll people all the time, so the evidence of sadism is not definitive. But this seems to fundamentally miss the point of Bayesian evidence. Does trolling, the way that Keltham is trolling, make Carissa more or less sure of a bet she's already made, such that she would double down? I can't remember specifically when he was trolling her, but...
he was trolling all the students. He was giving them a lecture. He was like, oh, that was the old Keltham that believed that. New Keltham believes that having this golem just input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over and over again is the most optimal thing in the world. And I'm going to continue believing that until you can convince me otherwise.
I agree with, sorry if I'm butchering this, Istan Delete. The whole point of doing that was to make them, it's kind of like, I'm reminded of, I feel like it was Penn Jillette or somebody, or maybe somebody referencing him, giving an example of like, which cup is the ball under? They do that little ball moving trick under a cup. Mm-hmm. And you're like, the left one. And it's like, okay, I'll bet you $100 it's not the left one. Do you still think it is? Mm-hmm. And if it's Penn Jillette moving the cups, you're like, okay, never mind. I'm no longer sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, just for fun, why not? Lifts it up and it is the left cup. It's making sure that you need to be actually really sure for good reasons.
Yeah.
And so sure that, yeah, I'll take a bet.
I'm so curious if they took the bet, whether he would have lifted it up and there would have been no ball. Like, it's probably a thing that he can change on the fly.
I made up the example, like, I think it was, for whatever reason, Penn Jillette was involved in the initial example, but I made up the rest of the example on my own just now. But
yeah.
Hypothetically, yeah, why not? It's the kind of thing that somebody should do.
But do you think Istan Delete is correct on this?
About the broader point of dad joking, well, I don't know if dad jokes are of the same kind of flavor of what Keltham was doing. Dad jokes, I don't know.
Didn't we agree that dads do troll their kids like that all the time, though?
I suppose. I'm trying to remember, like, what the, specific...
So, not in the case of, like, dad jokes in general, but, like, specifically that sort of prank that frustrates your kid and makes them adorably unhappy. Would you think that kind of trolling is Bayesian evidence of sadism?
No.
Okay. How come?
I guess I have a different connotation for sadism. It's relishing in someone's actual pain.
Yeah.
And if it's just them being tricked or, groaning because you use clever or, annoying wordplay, depending on your flavor, that seems different than sadistic.
Yeah.
But I can see how they are both, if you zoom out, the kind of like taking pleasure in someone else's displeasure. But I think they're different enough that I would want to call them different things.
I think I agree with you because of the definition of sadism. I think that you could be a very sweet, nice person who would never do something like trolling children and yet delight in like ripping the flesh off of living animals in your basement. And I think that you could be someone who loves trolling, but would be like, oh my God, no, I'm not going to slap my lady while we're having sex, even if she's into it. That's too weird.
Or, just not torture people who don't want to be tortured.
Yeah, but the question ultimately is, if you see someone making these dad jokes, are they more likely to be the kind of person who is into sadism than who isn't? Or these dad trolls? Like, on the one hand, I almost want to say yes, because doing dad trolling correlates with being male, and being male correlates with being more sadistic than the general population, since the general population includes females. But on the other hand, I think that's way too weak of a connection, because then you could just say that anything that is correlated with being male correlates with sadism. I don't think that works. In that case, just update on the subject being male rather than this third thing.
I mean, I love dad jokes. What does that tell you about my propensity towards sadism?
In my opinion, nothing. Or nothing that I didn't already know by the fact that you're male.
Fair enough. I mean, I happen to have no interest in sadism.
Yeah, if I didn't know what your sex was, then telling me that you're into dad jokes and trolling of that nature would update me slightly. But given that I do already know that, it doesn't change things for me.
I once in a while I'm on the dad jokes subreddit, and it's like my mom told me this one or whatever. The first comment is always like, "She'll make a great dad someday." Like
Nice.
A dad joke is it's in spirit. It's not in who's saying it.
Oh yeah, tons of women love them. Charlie loves dad jokes.
Well, and like a lot of them, again, it's like, oh my daughter got me with this joke or something. And, she's like 5 and she did wordplay or whatever, and it's like, oh, she's going to be a great dad. Like it's just it's that kind of thing. But
yeah.
All right. Well, meta note for this one, we both had the same thought that this is not to put the rest of the book down, but this is the first time I've actually been like gripped and excited reading this.
Yeah.
It got a little I don't want to say dry. It got as convoluted as it needed to be, and it was textually necessary. Like with the guy who was running around with that like super witch at the end.
Yes, there was a bit there that got a little drier. I agree.
It got a little esoteric, but he was doing like the 3 levels of abstraction talking that he needed to do to like maintain plausible deniability for all of the contrived circumstances that they're in, which is delightful. Yeah. And so I totally get why it was happening, and maybe it was supposed to be a little confusing or like a little dry, because like when you live in such a fucked up world that's how many caveats you have to put on, like do you have anything you want to tell us? ? Then it's kind of it's demonstrative of how fucked up that society is, right?
I think that since this is a thing that is not just trying to be entertaining, it's trying to teach as well. It was a good level of having some dry teachingness in there that was supported along by the rest of the story. Like, this is the first time since I've been reading where I got to the end and I was like, God damn it, I really want to keep reading. I can't believe I have to stop. Now I know how Steven felt all those weeks in Worth the Candle.
Yay!
Yeah. But I had to, because I don't want to spoil myself for the next episode yet.
No, of course.
Yeah, so yeah, this was, I was really into this, and I think a lot of it was just that this is the first time we really see strong stakes for the people that we care about. Like, they're getting tortured, and that's big, and I'm scared for them, and I hate that this is happening to them. And yeah, I got pulled in.
Yeah, like they're scared. Things are happening. Like when she was threatened by, I think it was the same guy, the one, whatever, Elias was threatening Carissa several weeks ago. I was like, she'll be fine, because it was too early in the story for anything to happen to her. But this one, things are kicking off. So let's jump in and start talking about it.
Hell yes. Ione Sala comes up to Keltham at the end of the lecture and says, hey, I'm a follower of Nethys. I really appreciate what you taught me today. Like, this is so important to me that I will do anything you want for you sexually at any time, just to repay you the favor, because I have no other way to like pay you for this awesomeness that you gave me.
She did also say like teach him magic, but she also, because it's Cheliax, had to say sexually.
Yeah. She was offering
whatever services she can, including her body.
Absolutely.
Because that seems to be the only currency these people know how to deal in. So
I don't think so. I think she doesn't really have much else.
Right, because they don't have money, because they're not getting paid. They're exchanging knowledge and sexual favors for each other. That is their currency.
Yes.
Yeah.
We find out later that this is not actually the reason she went up to him. She was just doing this so he would remember, like, this is Ione Sale, and if she disappears, I'll notice. But I did not believe when she was saying this that she was a Nethys follower. She's obviously playing something, but she's not actually a Nethys person.
Isn't it a bit of both? I mean, because she actually is.
We find out later that she is. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, so at the time I was like, oh yeah, she's just there to find another way to wiggle in, right? And then we learn that she actually is of the Nethian persuasion. I think it like must have happened during class, right? She's just suddenly an oracle of Nethys.
Maybe during lunch or something, but yeah, sometime really close to then.
And so now she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm really really super into what you're teaching. So please keep it up with that." Yeah, at first it just sounded like sucking up, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, then too, it was the same thing of like just so remember me? I've got probably a name tag on and everything. So if I start acting different or if I stop coming in, it's because I said these things. And she asks him, like to swear to secrecy and stuff first. And he's like, "Oh, I don't understand why you tell me this if you're not worried about listeners behind the magical walls or behind the walls or magical eavesdropping or something." But he thinks to himself, if it was true and not a trap to see if I'm planning to betray Asmodeus. And I'm like, good, he's catching on his proper paranoia here.
I like that he just assumed they're under surveillance now, which is cool.
Yeah, it's about time. I think he might have been assuming that, but I guess he isn't aware of the level. He may even be thinking that they're reading his mind, but it's like, well, what I have is too valuable for them to be mad that I'm a heretic or something. I think that the level at which like this is just super casual will probably surprise him when he discovers it. But yeah, I also just noted that Yukowski was writing both parts here for Ione and Keltham, because like sometimes they write things, against each other.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think he just did both because he's like, I really want this character to have this part, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what like if they exchange emails or like non-text or non-tag communications, if they're going to do stuff like that.
I have heard that there is generally some back channel between authors when they're writing a glowfic.
I would think there'd have to be, just because it's like, look, I really didn't want to have an Nethys thing that's actually going to fuck up the whole story. Like, if that was the case, then you're like, okay, cool, I'll drop that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or I'll at least leave
I'll
leave the door open
coordination
for you to knock it down, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
After she leaves him, she's confronted by, I believe this is Elias, right? The invisible guy that's been around the whole time so far.
Yeah, and he was so fun, when he ran off to grab that spell and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that was cool.
Now he sucks. I mean, he's great. He's a great bad guy. He's the worst, right?
Yes.
It's like how much fun Voldemort has, doing mean things to people.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I still think that he was fun. Like, it was cool that he had that triumph with getting the scroll and everything. I still appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't.
Yeah.
Was your enjoyment of that diminished by finding out that he's a terrible typical Cheliax person?
Kind of.
Okay.
Some Horns effect maybe, right? But
yeah.
I mean, I liked his. I guess I like the victory or whatever, that the cleverness, the just getting it in time kind of thing. But it makes me like him less. So when that made me like him, like this is such a swing against that. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't like him anymore, even if he still does cool stuff.
Okay,
does cool stuff like maiming, but without permanently damaging somebody as a form of just like pure retaliation.
Yeah,
for something that she didn't have control over.
Yeah. I guess that is the Cheliaxian way. You impose costs on people if they do things you don't like, even if they couldn't quite help it.
See, that makes no sense though. And that goes against, like Keltham's definition of dignity, right? You don't get mad at people for doing stuff that they're supposed to do. And I would put under that stuff that they can't help but do.
I absolutely agree with you in the real world. I think in this world, since this was something that was done by a god, by Nethys, maybe having a credible commitment to punish people who interfere with your shit would discourage Nethys slightly from doing this. And Nethys was like, well, this is a cost I'm willing to pay. One of my followers will be tortured for a bit, but it's worth it. Whereas this might happen more frequently if the people she oracled or the people he oracled weren't tortured.
Yeah, it could be. It's fun to imagine that they would think that they could influence the decisions of gods at all, but they probably totally can, right?
Yeah,
they probably do think about that.
Yeah, it's a large part of the walk around the garden section is that humans do influence what gods can and do.
Right, but it's by, stepping on things that they shouldn't step on or just failing to listen to orders, not by setting up plots against them, right?
Yeah, but I think it's in the Asmodean teachings that she should be tortured.
Because she had the misfortune of having another god like her.
Yep.
All right, well, fair enough.
And Nethys would know that about Asmodeus.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ione is now worried about credibly committing to and personally truly believing that she will cooperate with the Chelish government in anything so long as it doesn't turn Nethys against her in the afterlife. That really drove home to me like how much everyone is just coordinating everything in their lives around the gods. That's the primary thing that's of importance to basically everyone in this society.
That caveat that you gave at the end, is probably why she got her eyes gouged out, right? I'll do anything I can to cooperate. Just that doesn't turn Nethys against me. It's like, what do you mean Nethys? Fuck you. I know that's not exactly what happened, but
Maybe
that's a super heretical thing to say, right?
it's definitely would be heretical to a follower of Asmodeus. Yeah,
Yeah, which they all were, 3 hours ago.
yeah.
And you're right. Like it does emphasize how important all this afterlife business is and stuff. But this is half the fuel for the fires of the Inquisition, or at least some percentage of it. I don't know how many of it was actually, truly motivated by this nice ideology of like, look, it sucks that we're doing these terrible things to you, but this is just a passing thing. You're a mortal soul, man. That's what we're really here to try to save.
Mm-hmm.
If you really believe that, you can justify all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a weird place.
Another weird thing was that he has her fail her will save. Says literally, fail your will save, say that again. So assuming that he casts some sort of spell on her that she has a will save against. Now I want to know how literal the game rules are, because fail your will save is something that a DM would say to a player or something, right? To have it two people say to each other in the real world makes me, again, I mean, they literally have stats that they can see. They can see each other's alignments with spells. This is fascinating, and I want to know what it's like to live in a actual game world.
Yeah, I can't wait till these mechanics start playing more of a role. I want to see, like, I mean, it seems to imply that she tried to pass a will, like maybe, she just, if she didn't roll, right? But what does that mean? What does that entail in her mind? Is she making a dice roll every time she walks down the hall to like not trip? Like the other funny thing I thought about was like, what if she's got a hot hand and she just keeps passing her will save? Does he just keep punishing her? Like,
I believe you can choose to fail a save if you want to.
oh, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Why not?
In the rules,
Yeah.
But the fact that you can choose to fail one in the rules is very much a conceit of the rules. So the fact that he said that in real life is what really drew my attention to it.
Yeah.
Not just like, don't resist my magics or something. Literally fail your will save.
Yeah. I'm eager to see what this looks like.
Yeah.
Some sort of pun for looks like. Elias says, well, I'll submit this situation for review. And now you can gouge your eyeball out. The conversation being over. Someone will come by and heal it in an hour or so. They're not savages. No, nothing savage going on here.
That was fucking, like, yeah, that was when I really started like, okay, shit. This chapter is the one that brought home what we're dealing with in hell here. And that was the first part of that where he's like, okay, cool. Now I'm just going to mutilate you. And then I thought even cooler, in her agony post-gouging, she's lying on the floor trying not to move too much so she doesn't bleed out. And she's being extremely careful to censor her thoughts, because even her thoughts can hurt her here. But the things she's like thinking about are things she's really happy about, and she keeps forcing herself not to think them. And it ended with, she wipes the smile hard off her face as soon as she notices that it's there. God, that was such good writing. The despair of, I can't think these things that actually make me really happy, but like you can feel the actual happiness coming through. I loved that so much.
I think she's coming to terms with the fact that she never really wanted to go to hell in the first place. Now that the option is there not to, she was like, oh, thank God, that did sound terrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can't think that, not until she's more powerful, right?
Yeah. Speaking of like the game rules thing, I did a Google on Pathfinder oracles. When you create an oracle character, it is a character whose class is forced upon them by a god. And maybe they know who the god is, maybe they don't, but they didn't have any choice in this, and it kind of fucks up their life. Exactly like what happened here. And the thing is, when I was reading the rules, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I would like to play a character like this in a game. That would make for some really fun role-playing. But when you read the rules, you have a lot of agency. Like, your character didn't choose to do that, but you chose to make a character like that, so you're still completely in control of what happens to them. And seeing it happen to a quote-unquote real person, like someone who I'm not in control of, who I am modeling as doing their own thing because they're puppeted by these two authors instead of by my own brain, it felt distinctly different, even though I know the exact same thing is happening, just once removed. That dichotomy between being in a game and seeing an actual person having that control ripped away from them, it felt different.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's, like the next exchange with we can skip past this Ottoman's quote that I have because it just leads up to her or what is it, oracling or clericing like a halfling slave in the halls.
Yes, that was great.
And so it's just like this, right? So like I mentioned above, like Kutkaski wrote both parts so that he could have this Ione thing go the way he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably he thought it would be fun to have this, this other side thing, and he left this door open for Kelsey to work with or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Ottomans decides that, okay, you know what? I've decided I'm not going to break the rules against provocation, regardless of provocation. If they're going to oppose me, then there are things I can do because there's options. Now that things have been going on, people throwing levels at each other, right?
Yeah.
And so the slave in the hallway gets a 4th level oracle of Ottomans. Mm-hmm. And then the next line is just from Kelsey that just says, he's immediately arrested by security.
Yes. That was awesome.
My thoughts as I was like, oh, hell yeah. And then I read the next sentence, I was like, oh, fuck. And I thought this would be like a kind of a cool, side thing, but they've got apparently alarms that go off if anyone receives any sort of God interactions. So, oh, man.
I love the fact that the way Eliezer chose to do this, he's like, Ottomans, completely socially inept, does not understand social stuff at all, right? Like, very much the Metatron from Unsong kind of highly aspy type of personality. So he's like, oh, I see. You made an oracle of someone in this place? Well, I'm going to make an oracle too. This halfling slave, oracle, boom! And completely clues to the fact that, like, a halfling slave immediately just going to get picked up, taken off the game board. Like, you can't just randomly do it to whatever. You have to be socially smart about who you choose as your oracle, or they're going to get taken out like that. I loved the demonstration of how social cluelessness can really hurt you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I thought maybe he was just trying to be subtle, right? Like do it under the radar. But that's part of the social cluelessness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the only reason that Ione wasn't tackled and dragged out of the room when it happened was because she was in front of her peers, and Keltham would, they really want what's in Keltham's brain, and he would probably stop cooperating if they watched her get dragged into the hallway and get her head cut off. So
it was a great character moment for Ottomans.
Yeah. Oh, it was great.
So Elias goes to visit Carissa, and he's like, all right, so what's going on with Keltham's teachings? Why are they not compatible with our theology? And Carissa's like, well, he's from a different world, etc. Like, very careful not to say anything bad about Asmodeism. And Elias is like, look, I'm in a hurry, and that your ability to say things that don't mean anything isn't in question. What's wrong? And I love that. I really love it when people can just actually be honest and frank with each other, and that they sometimes have informal code phrases for now is such a time. Like, enough with the bullshit. You don't have to pretend you love Stalin or whatever. We have a serious problem, and I just want to know the answer, and you will not be punished in this situation. And as Carissa, you can't entirely believe him, but you can mostly believe him, so you can be much more forthright all of a sudden.
I agree with all of that, except for the implicit promise that you won't be punished in this situation. I think it's more just like, look, I'm going to punish you. Like, just hurry up and tell me. You've already wasted, 2 seconds of my life. Because he slaps her hard enough to kill a person.
Yeah.
Like,
but not a wizard.
Right. But I mean, it's still punishment.
It's true. I think the implication was very much, normally you would be tortured for heresy if you didn't dance around this and not say anything, and you're not going to be tortured for heresy here. We will keep your skin on you. Just tell me the thing. And like, a hard slap is much more of a token punishment when normally you get tortured halfway to death.
Okay, I see what you're saying. And yeah, I guess, I think what he was, I took it to him just to be saying that normally I'd indulge your ability to answer a question without saying anything. But I'm not doing that right now. Now I want an actual answer. Hurry up. With or without the punishment implication. But I see what you're saying. And in real life, that is nice. Like, if you're close enough friend to somebody where you can be like, look, I just need an answer, and I'm not being rude. No one's feeling is going to be hurt. Just like, whatever this is, can you help me move this couch or something? Right. Mm-hmm. It's nice when you can kind of just cut straight to the point. Yeah. Without having to do all the nonsense. He's just like, he wants to skip the nonsense. Yeah. But I still
and just, that's cool.
Again, like, granted, she's funny. She tells a joke, and he doesn't like that because he's mean. But they've got they're going to go to the soul, signing, whatever ceremony ritual, yeah. And she's like, "Well, can I bring a date?" And then he slaps her hard enough to kill somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, so wasn't he slapping her because, she was mouthing off rather than as punishment for telling him a potential heresy?
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
Yeah.
But I mean, when somebody who is so inclined, if they say, "Look, I just want an answer," it's like, sure, but you're also the kind of person who will hit me hard enough to break my jaw.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah, I wouldn't totally trust them. I wouldn't go deep heresy for saying this, but I would lower my guard a little bit, get rid of some of the filters.
well, also because if you kept filtering, he would hit you, right?
Oh, that too, yeah.
Yeah. But either way, it's this is part of like when the tension starts climbing, right?
Yeah.
And it's so delightfully broken when we get a Keltham tag in parentheses, Project Nap, currently making excellent progress.
Yes. Oh my god. When Keltham is like, man, my day is so stressful. I really wish I was my research harem because their days are so carefree. I wish I could have as carefree a day as they're having. I was like, oh my god, Keltham, this is wonderful. This is like, he doesn't know. He legit thinks that this is not a horrible world, and we're finally seeing just how naive and innocent he is.
I mean, he thinks he's seen what horrible looks like. And it's like, man, we haven't scratched the surface. You've heard that there's a world wound and that people get tortured or whatever. Hold your breath. Like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, their days are so much easier than mine. I'm exhausted planning all these lessons and stuff.
This is almost torturous how much planning I have to do.
Right. Yeah, this sucks. Meanwhile, Ione is rolling around with an eyeball missing and the rest of them are off to sign their souls away tonight, So
Elias goes to Ione and he tells her that it was a serious misconduct to try to come to his attention just so we wouldn't kill you. Then she says, look, I wasn't trying to inconvenience you. I wasn't even trying to live. I just was trying to make sure Nethys didn't shatter my soul. He asks her in a separate incident, but I put it in the same area here. Is this a trade that you want to make? Becoming less useful to Hell after death to be more useful to Keltham?
For that part, though, he was talking to Carissa.
I think you're right. Yeah, he was talking to Carissa.
Or the first two was Ione, then it was Carissa in the last one.
Yeah. And I know I said this earlier, but it really ground into me like everything in this world is about how useful you are to a god in the afterlife. There's really nothing else that matters than your afterlife prospects and specifically what use a god will make of your soul. And I think this is awesome world building. And I'm kind of curious if that's Pathfinder canon, that everyone on the world in Galarian is primarily concerned about that rather than the things we would be concerned about in a non-afterlife world.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I only played part of a campaign and the gods never came up, but maybe they just didn't want to dig into the lore of it.
And I did take these out of order. And
oh no, that's fine. And I forgot to mention at the top of the show, we made we're attempting to take less notes this time, or to put less notes in our formal show notes this time, so that the episodes don't run quite as long. So, or rather, just they don't get quite as rambly.
Yeah.
But then we get to the part where she gets like her contract.
Yeah, she asks after she's done reading it. Yeah, she's like, okay, cool, standard contract. You want me to tell the kids that it's a standard contract? By the kids being the research haremettes. She says, I don't know how many of them will have looked it up. And Elias says, the ones who don't have the initiative to get confirmation that they have a standard contract don't have a standard contract. I was like, fucking Asmodeus. Exactly what you would expect, right? Just bleed out every little edge you can.
If they don't know what something's worth, we're not going to tell them.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's cutthroat, but it's perfectly consistent.
Then we get an insight into actual, like, the Asmodeus himself personally. I'm just going to read this. All this goes through a splintered facet of Asmodeus' attention in a fractional moment of reflex. Before that splintered fragment directs a thought to a Duke of Hell who will not be shattered by it, and then goes on to other parts of his business, elsewhere on this plane. The thought consists of the relevant facts and a statement of intents. Greater attention to the mortal details and specifying a precise policy around them is what underlings are for. I thought this was an amazing, fantastic rendition of a god, of like this disembodied, detached optimization process who doesn't like have interests and attention the same way we think of them, but it's just like a small facet thing. Here's data in, here's some quick process, here's a dump of intentions and relevant data to someone else. You already know how to execute on my algorithms. Go do the thing. Like, this was really cool and made it feel both alien and powerful and overarching, I guess, in a way that human consciousnesses aren't. I liked it.
Yeah, it's nice to kind of see some version of what it's like going on in their heads. because it explains, why doesn't he just like tell them what to do? He's too busy, and his attention's across all the dimensions. Not like the boring gods that can literally do everything, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing all the other complicated stuff, but of course you have my full attention. That level of omnipotence gets boring pretty fast.
Yeah. It's more like the gestalt of an ideology of a decision process than he is a personal being, right?
Yeah. I loved so I think she gets like her contract slid over to her. Then we get the cut to Asmodeus, and then she's going to sign it. And then he's like, not so fast, and pulls the paper away. And then Elias is preparing a spell in the corner, probably going to just blow her up or something.
Something. It's a combat spell.
Yeah. She's like, what's the problem? I have a date. And he's like, rejoice, you've come to the attention momentarily of a god. This was the gripping stuff we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I could not stop at this point. I was just like going and going through that whole scene.
Agreed.
When you said like, is there a problem? I have a date. The demon she's talking to, Phistopheles, maybe? He thinks, oh, I like this one. He'd like to rip her heart out specifically. And I love that. I thought that was, as a devil, the more he likes someone, the more he wants to torment them. And I got a frisson of a feeling of what being this sort of thing must be like to be drawn to something in order to hurt it. I don't know. It was a cool taste of a character.
I took him just to be the exact kind of Satan, Voldemort, puppy kicking monster where it's like, oh look, this one has a backbone. I'm going to enjoy ripping it out of her and slapping her across the face with it.
Yeah.
Like not just like, oh, she's great. It's gonna make it that much fun to torture her just so I can break her.
Right. That's what makes her more fun, more liking.
Phistophilus, I think was this one's name. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it's pronounced, but in my head I kept calling him Fisto, which makes me think of Fisto the robot from Fallout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should go with the more Greek pronunciation, where it's Phistopha rather than Fisto.
Yeah, Phistophilus, for sure.
Yeah. But Fisto works too.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably into that too,
Yeah, he's fucking devils, man.
Assume the position.
A neat thing that I didn't realize we were going to get a lot more of when I first pulled this out is that one of the things he says is that the queen and her slaves need not concern themselves proactively with Carissa's descent into cruelty, wickedness, and the darkness of her own soul. But if she wishes to indulge those things, she should get support as the inheriting daughter of a count. The fact that their ruling class is expected to descend into cruelty, wickedness, and darkness gave me a feeling that maybe hell is a pretty bad place. This place sounds like not necessarily the kind of place I'd want to be.
Hell or Cheliax?
Both?
Yeah, both. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that seems to be the part of the promise or whatever, the agreement here, the will of Asmodeus that's communicated that matters the most. She's not to sell her soul today. She is allowed to travel beyond Cheliax as if she had sold her soul. She's allowed access to her teacher. In matters apart from those, she's to be trusted, rewarded, and punished no more and no less than she has earned by Asmodeus' law. Don't try and correct her. Don't try and give her course correction because anything beyond the ordinary, because she's special. So it's basically, it goes from like, we're going to blow her head up to like, oh, okay, well, in that case, you got it. And then there is some like kind of nice little fuckery later. I don't know if I pulled out where it's like, whatever, she's to be prioritized as though she were the inheriting daughter of a Count of Cheliax. It's like, well, as long as we're dealing with this hypothetical person, well, there's no actual, inheritance because this person's hypothetical, but we're not going to deal with it that way. Like basically they're saying, yes, we found a way to weasel through this, but we're not going to, which was, I guess, nice of him to point out, but also nice of him not to try.
Yeah.
Cause it's different than like just trying to get around, a standard contract like they'll try and do with, Keltham or something, right? Right. This is their actual god. So we're not going to honor the actual letter of the word. We're going to honor what we interpret to also be the spirit of it. So then she gets to go off and process the situation. And
can we touch on the last thing that happened before she goes off to process?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was so awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, the devil tells her, like, when she's
like, yes, I understand. And he stares at her and he's like, because I think she's trying to keep her composure.
Mm.
You should be more excited and grateful, little mortal. Even most barons of hell have never come to our Lord's direct attention. So he's like jealous and also thinking that she should be, more like weeping with gratitude.
Yeah.
And he says, I would dearly like to eat your heart right now.
Yes. And she says, did you hear what you just said in reference to all the things about how she's to be treated basically as a minor princess of hell? We'll see who gets to eat whose heart. This was like right after she was like, oh my God, I'm fucking terrified, but I know I have to be a badass here and steel myself. And she drops that bomb on a fucking devil, and it was awesome. It made me say, fuck yes.
That's exactly
This is the badass bitch I'm here for.
I had the same quote with essentially the same comment, so
Nice.
our notes collided there. I like it. The next line was, it occurs to him then, though only briefly, that perhaps he ought to be the one who's afraid.
Yes.
And then he was like, well, I gotta go.
Deuces, please don't remember my name.
Right? That was Fisto with an F. Bye. So she's reflecting on the exact words of the translated will of Asmodeus, and she thinks that she needs to be more evil. I think something about like nurture those parts of you that are already with my will or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it says she's pretty sure in hindsight that every evil thing she's ever done has been the first kind, the weaker kind, the evil of choosing Carissa Savar over every other person in the universe. So there's two kinds of evil, the kind of like being selfish, and then the kind of like whatever, smashing babies because you can, right?
Yeah. The descent into cruelty, wickedness, and the darkness of your soul.
Yeah, and like she feels unapologetic about all of that evil. Certainly, no other person in the universe is choosing Carissa Savar over themselves. And if they were, they'd be stupid to excuse me. And if they were, that'd be stupid and contemptible of them.
Mm.
And that's I pulled that out because she has no concept of what love is.
I believe she's probably never seen love in her life.
Yeah, but it seems like it's incomprehensible to her.
Would you be able to comprehend love if you'd never seen anyone be loving in your life?
I'm not, probably not. I'm not, saying that she should know it from the wombs, and what she's been through. But
Yeah.
I'm merely pointing out that she's a loveless monster. Whether or not she gets any agency over that or not.
Okay. That's a good point.
I mean,
I don't. Is she a loveless monster though? Didn't we just say fuck yes? This is the badass we're here for.
we can like her.
Yeah.
It was fun watching Voldemort be cool. It was bad when he nailed the skins of Yermy Wibble's family to the newsroom wall, right?
Right.
But it was badass.
Yeah.
So I think that it's similar here. Although we're rooting for her and we're not rooting for Voldemort. But
yes, and I think a large part of that is because we are given right now this specific thing where she's like, I am the kind of evil where I have to take care of myself and put myself first because no one else in the world does, which I think is pretty understandable to us, even if we think it's unfortunate, as opposed to the kind of evil where you intentionally torture puppies and kill toddlers.
Right. Well, then, because she's already good at the first kind of being super selfish and having no notion of love, she's like, well, I really need to practice that second part. The evidence of that, she says, Carissa has spent a lot of time worrying if she is loyal enough, but almost none worrying if she's evil enough. She's not squeamish. She doesn't refuse to report people out of misguided sympathy for them. She has whipped students who get bad grades and practiced deadly spells on weeping prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
So she's also the second kind, right?
She's not less so.
Well, that's only because she hasn't had a chance to nurture it yet. She's affirming now that she's like, I got to practice at that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
maybe she won't get that far, and we can keep liking her. But I'm thinking she's going to practice. Like, I wonder what happens. I wonder if with this spell I can make babies breathe underwater. Let's try it on 30 people's kids, right?
See, I think that feels different to me because I don't know. There's
also that's more of a Nethesy thing. She would just do it for fun.
Totes, yeah, just to see if it works. I think there's a difference between what is socially considered deserved versus what is capricious and cruel. Like, descent into cruelty and wickedness feels to me like doing evil things just for the joy of doing them. Whereas if someone gets bad grades, then it is socially accepted that they are deserving of a whipping. That is what happens. Much like we would say if somebody stole something, they're deserving of a punishment of some kind. And weeping prisoners, well, these are people that have already been found guilty by the law and you're just executing the punishment that was handed down, right? So even though those are probably people whose only crime was loving their children too much or whatever, there is a sort of feeling of this was deserved that makes you slightly less culpable, as opposed to, oh, they don't deserve anything, but I'm doing it anyway because it's more fun to hurt people who don't deserve it.
Right. As evil as the sentiment and rationale of I was just following orders is, it is better than like, no, man, I volunteered because I thought it would be awesome. Right.
Yeah.
And so previously she might have been just doing the first, but she wants to be more like the kind of person who would do the second.
Yeah.
And that seems, maybe disappointing, right?
Yeah, that is unfortunate. I don't think that's because she's a bad person. I think that's because the society she's in is awful, which I guess has made her a bad person. But I'm more disappointed in society than in her. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, again, it's
you're right.
I mean, I don't want to make it. We can still enjoy the character. I still want to see what she does, and I don't want her to succeed at killing all the innocent puppies, but I'm eager to see what will happen there. We all still like Professor Quirrell, even though he was super evil, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where some of this is going to be we saw him do evil stuff. We saw him threaten to do evil stuff. We knew he'd do it. And it's like, we still don't want him to die, right? I think that's kind of what we're going for here.
It definitely is. In my head, I still have a separation between Professor Quirrell and Voldemort. Even though I know, according to canon, they're the same person, but they just don't feel like the same person to me. I still like one and I still hate the other. And
I think that's... I don't know. I hate saying that's intentional. I think that's how we're supposed to read.
Yeah.
But I think that is intentional. Harry felt the same way, right?
Yeah.
It's they're two different people in the same way that Voldemort was a character that Tom Riddle was playing as much as Professor Quirrell was. And it's just, who was it underneath? I don't know, man. I don't know who anyone really is underneath all that.
That's fair.
So. Well, we'll see who she decides to play. Right now, she wants to play Voldemort and get good at it.
Yes,
she whips him, but she doesn't whip him as hard as maybe as hard as she can, and she doesn't enjoy it as much as she possibly can. She only wants to. So
right,
we'll see. Ione's got a pretty cool. So I guess if you're Oracle, you get a cool curse, or not necessarily a cool curse.
Yeah,
but she got a cool curse.
I think so. She has to live in a library for the rest of her life. Even to the point where she's like, I think if I had a bedroom that was a library, that might work, but it couldn't just be a bedroom with books in it. It would literally have to be that people need to be able to wander into her bedroom at any time and read the books there. And that seemed kind of sweet to me. Maybe it's just because I have such a positive affect for libraries, but I was like, aw, that would be a really nice curse. I wouldn't mind people wandering into my bedroom as long as they were doing it to read books.
Well, and
probably in real life, I would hate that.
Have hours,
That's a good point. I'm assuming hers might not, or else the curse might be too weak.
Maybe you get 6 hours a night, to yourself or something. But it's like of all the curses, it seems like pretty good. I'm not sure what's on the menu that's available, but it could have been something as stupid as has to spend 16 hours a day standing, or on her head, right?
Oh, there's some really awful ones. When I was looking through the Oracle rules, there's some bad curses out there.
Well, this one, she got off super easy.
I guess you remember the plague times, right? Not being able to leave your apartment sucks. Imagine having that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I wonder, those little libraries that are in mailbox shaped things on the street.
Mm-hmm.
If she was just constantly carrying a luggage. With a bunch of books. I'm not saying that she could weasel around this forever, but could she get from place to place doing that? She's literally a traveling library.
No, then it's not a curse.
It's still a curse. She still has to drag all these books around. She still has to do the library business, right? I'm not saying that she can weasel around it because it's part of her soul now, but it's it might mean that she can actually leave the house as long as she continues to stay in a library. If it's not. Yeah, it's not merely that she be near one, which the suitcase would be the library at that point, right?
I would argue that a suitcase is not a library, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Well, I mean, the little libraries, maybe they're not libraries the same way that the buildings are either, but they kind of are.
They kind of are.
So the only way this would really work, yeah, she'd have to like get some sort of like hamster wheel or hamster ball kind of thing where it's full of books. People can walk in and out and check them out, but she can still run around. Maybe it's still easy on the list of curses, but yeah, you're making it sound less fun, but it's not the worst thing ever.
I don't know. I've long had a long-standing beef with privacy, so I might be a particularly good person for this to be a curse on. But it does sound like a cool curse to me. Yeah.
Again, it not without its downsides.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is back with her POV, and she's thinking about her current circumstances. Like, what the hell? And it's fun because Chris is having the same sort of thing. There was a line where it was like, a different Carissa than she was 10 minutes ago leaves the room or something. And people are getting, level ups literally and figuratively left and right here.
Yeah, and she's thinking about the unfairness of reality. This sounds a lot like the Odyssey to me, where she's like, why do I owe anything to this god? Why does anyone owe anything to gods? Like, they're not down here helping the humans. They could help us, but they don't. Nethys never made her his oracle or helped her in any other way before she was in a position to be useful to him, And I'm putting the emphasis on this sentence that is maybe not how she would have said it or how it was meant to be read, but like, this very much felt like a fuck the gods for ignoring me and letting me live through this hellscape land right up until I'm valuable to them. And then, all of a sudden they intervene. Like, screw you, gods. And I'm with her on this. It is also one of the things that I hated about gods back when I believed in them. And it's weird. When you first turn to an atheist from being a believer and you don't really believe in God anymore, but you still have all that pent up anger at how unfair things would have been if God did exist.
Yeah, it's easy to recreate that whenever I'm reading any fiction with gods in it.
Yeah, exactly. So I got those vibes all over again when I was reading this. And I was like, yeah, fuck those guys. But
or if anyone ever says to you, even as a non-believer, that like, it's all part of God's plan.
Oh yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, yeah, fuck you. If there's reason for that, you and the reason maker can fuck right off.
But in this particular world, like, these gods aren't omnipotent. They're much more like extremely powerful agents who still have limits on their resources. So I don't think Nethys could help everyone. Like, just literally impossible for Nethys to do that. And so he has to pick and choose where he will use his resources. And when you have to pick and choose, like, you're going to use your resources for people that can provide you return value, right? Like, it'd be stupid not to.
No, of course. Although, which one was it that threw cleric or threw money at Asmodeus to make him add more cleric levels to Keltham?
That was Nethys.
So I mean,
Nethys is a little crazy.
Yeah, so it's not like he's not willing to throw his money around willy nilly, but
But
he still does have a finite amount. So
yeah,
I can still totally sympathize with her though. Like, and she probably understands that too, right? Like, yeah, the gods can only do so much for some reason, that they are constrained despite being so powerful. But I'm still a little salty. I think that's her vibe.
Yeah, it got me to thinking, because we are in this position as humans, and specifically as humans living in America, that we have more resources than we need just to ourselves, but we can't save literally everyone, so we got to make these choices too. And I gotta say, it almost seems nice that, like, when someone is choosing who to help, that there's certain default grace conditions of just like, well, I'm this person's child, or I'm this person's nephew, or whatever, so they're gonna help me just because we're family. It feels, I almost think it is. I use the word grace, like, it is a neat intervention from the divine, that there are some cases where you will just get help from people much more able than you are, not because you are being specifically useful for them, not because you have to prove your worth, but just due to random accident. And it sucks that not everyone has that, but it's kind of nice that at least some people do, that not everyone is in this Malachian rat race to prove they're useful all the time.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
No, totally. It's one of those things with people talking about, like, well, strict utilitarians should, skip their son's 5th birthday party so they can work a couple extra hours and donate that money or whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, but that's not actually being human. And there's beauty seems like too trite of a word, but it's the one that's coming to mind, in our shortcomings, like, yeah, we're not perfect agents at these things, but that means that we can enjoy things like our kids' birthday parties, right?
Yeah.
And we can do that on the same day that there's an earthquake across the world that killed, 10,000 people. And it's like,
Yeah.
maybe we'd certainly be better at like whatever a world society if we canceled the birthday to donate money or something, right? But that's just part of what being. So some of the stuff we'll probably grow out of, but some of it is there to stay around for a while. Like, we care about those we care about. We prioritize them over other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She does say at the end here, despite her bitterness, she says, but it's still a little warm to have a master who took real visible steps to protect her against the worst that other masters can do. That felt like a very sweet sentiment to me. Like, this is one of the things that appeals about Abrahamic religions, right? Just the idea that there is someone, Jesus loves you just because you are his kin, and he will protect you and be nice to you. And I don't know, something about it does feel very nice to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's like being a kid with a parent again.
Yeah, this cutaway with her does the whole gamut of emotions that we'd all be feeling here. Like, fuck this guy for, not doing this earlier. All this is unfair. But also it's like, could have been somebody else, but he picked me, That is still a valid thing to feel.
Picked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also makes me, I don't know, kind of want to give someone else that feeling too, If you can pay it forward. Feels like a nice way to make the world better.
I think that's part of what loving somebody is, right?
Yeah.
It's, hopefully they feel, you can make them feel special, right?
Yeah, and protected.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, moving on. I almost said Baze. Keltham is back with his students, and he is suggesting some ideas for what they can try to help get him his wizard levels. And he mentions a clever idea and says, language note, the baseline idiom for clever idea carries the connotation that clever ideas often aren't. I like that. I think it's cool that the connotation of let's try my clever idea is, no, not cool. Like if I were to say that in English, I would say something like, let's try my galaxy-brained idea here, right? To make it a little self-deprecating, make it point out that like, this is something I'm coming up with that may be really stupid. And Marichelle says something similar. I think she said brilliant idea. But even though this is awesome and the way things should be, does this mean that there's no way to say in baseline something like clever idea that doesn't imply that it might actually just be dumb?
No, they just probably have a different word for it. Like, okay. I think this is a good idea. We should try it. But it's a shorter sentence.
All right. Like, I think it's just a legit good idea, period, without the cleverness, cheekiness thrown in.
Right. Like, we can do the same thing, in English for all its faults. So, baseline's got to be able to handle that.
All right. Fair enough.
I'm sure it's got gradations all the way from, like, sarcastic to 50% to 90% to 99.9%, right?
Yeah, maybe so.
And all of those have fewer syllables than 99.
Yeah.
99%. Yeah. I liked I like the same thing. Carissa doesn't have a watch because this place doesn't have watches. But if she had thought about it, this is around exactly 24 hours that ago that Keltham showed up,
yes.
And she might have worried that not enough interesting things had happened to her over the last 24 hours.
I love that. It is hilarious, and it is very much a thing that you only think if you think in narrative patterns, which I don't think Carissa would. But kind of cool that it was funny. I liked it.
Me too. And again, looking at the author is fun too. It's a Carissa segment, but Yudkowsky jumps into it these. And this was exactly Harry's first week, right?
Uh-huh.
He's sitting there and he's like, God,
he's holding his breath.
It's been a week, but has enough stuff happened. And then like on the dot, Trelawney starts screaming a prophecy, right?
Uh-huh.
And so rather than that, we get, she's got some complicated name. Aspexia Rugaton, Grand High Priestess of Asmodeus.
Yeah, High Priestess, we can just call her.
Great.
And the Carissa is now terrified for her life again, and she comes to the conclusion that now that she's got the attention of the fucking High Priestess here, she's concluded that she needs to get more ambitious, that being small isn't safe anymore. That sucks. That is a legit sign of a dystopia, in my opinion.
That being small is safe, or that being small isn't safe?
That your two options, not just that your two options are to hide from power, which is what being small and safe is, right? Like the powerful just don't care about you because you don't have anything they want, or become powerful and crush your opponents. Because if you are anywhere in the middle, the people who are powerful are going to crush you and take your stuff or do whatever they need to with you. Like, you literally only have the options of hide or become a monster, because anything else results in death and suffering. And that's a dystopia.
Yeah. No, I mean, it certainly sounds like you're describing Cheliax, you know?
Yeah.
I liked that, again, I still don't quite know whatever, like the trait that's underneath the character names in the text, like in the tags.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But hers is easy to steer.
Yes, that was really cool.
And when we get that glimpse in her head, like, it's so obvious that's not a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She's just like, why is it so fucking hard for you guys just to listen and do what you're told?
Mm-hmm.
I do it, and it's actually what you're supposed to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you guys overthinking this? Let me think of how I can act. It's like, oh my God, like your Amazon digital assistant, you ask it the weather. Do you also want to know tomorrow's weather? Do you also want to know the humidity?
Oh my God. Shut the fuck up, Alexa.
Exactly.
Every time.
And I've even said, like, stop asking or stop offering to do the thing, to do more, right? Just answer questions, but it's not that nice yet. But yeah, you're being less helpful actually than you are if you just told me the temperature, right?
Yeah.
And that's what everyone runs around trying to do for Asmodeus.
Yes.
And she was like, look, he knows what he's doing. Just do what he says, right?
Yeah. Not only does he
anticipate
know
his needs, you can't. Right?
You don't know what you might be fucking up on accident because you don't know the deep reasons behind whatever he's doing here.
Exactly.
As long as we're talking about this, I'm going to jump ahead to the quote I pulled out about it, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. This is about her, easily steered. One of the foremost ways in which the Grand High Priestess is shaped is to predictably not behave in ways that make it more expensive for Asmodeus to keep his contracts. A little bit later on, the Most High has guessed that if we would otherwise press you with questions, our Lord would probably have needed to command us not to do it, given the character of his other commands. By avoiding pressing you with questions, then, we can perhaps have saved our Lord some cost and space for other instructions. If there's anything you want to hear about this whole affair, the Most High wants to hear it, but you must not treat that truth as a command from the Most High. If that were predictably the way you behaved, Asmodeus might have needed to expend greater costs to tell the Most High not to appear before you and listen silently to you, if that's something she should not do. And with all this, given like how low bandwidth the communication is between the gods and the humans, how precious that resource is, it becomes extremely understandable why you want humans to be easy to steer like that, and why the gods are so fucking flummoxed by mortals with free will. Like, they have perfect god contracts that they have between each other that they must hold to, that preserve the entire order of the universe. And these fucking humans are just going around messing up. Like, you don't want to break your contract, but the humans are fucking breaking it for you. Just adhere to your perfect god contract. And then, the advice that they're told is, imagine how you would have acted if nothing that actually happened had happened, and don't do anything aside from that. Like, that's fucking hard even for really smart people. Like, your average human would have a hell of a time trying to implement that. And yeah, no wonder they're constantly being like, stop being a human and be hammered into a shape that is useful and that I can keep contracts with.
Yeah, no, it's great. And her struggle with this is emphasized. Like, I won't read the whole thing, but she like tried to devise a parable of a child who must be whose owner, not parent, must instruct us to navigate through a dungeon full of traps using a limited budget of words. Good analogy, right?
Yeah.
And then when the analogy didn't work, she tried it with real kids, and
yes,
that also didn't work.
God damn it!
But you're right. It's like, this is hard. She's trying to convince these people, like, look, just do what you're told, and we're actually that is the most good. That's the optimal way to follow the will, right? Of our chosen God. But no, let me, what else can I do for you? Can I also do this? Would this also be helping him? And it's like, just shut up. And it's great. I totally get her mindset. I don't know. I mean, I think I would hate to live in that sort of mindset, but
because you don't have free will, or at least not much. It
or
is
because I do, right? And I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I do think that this is one of the important things about becoming civilized, is that you become more predictable. Um, like, this is literally the problem with crazy people, right? You cannot predict how they're going to act, and the more that you can predict someone is going to be what we would call rational and sane, the more you can trust them to keep their word, the more you can trust them that they're safe to be around. Like, predictability is pretty important among humans to a certain extent. You don't want to be an automata, though.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. There's like when being told and when it matters, to interpret an instruction, totally right. But the difference between us being civilized, people in a society, and being a, I was going to say poor religious nut job, that's actually different because, their God's real and, vengeful, and being trapped in this hell, is that her strategy of just doing that all the time actually makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be like, other than the stress of everyone else doing it wrong, it would actually be super relaxing. Right. I'll just do exactly what I'm told.
Yeah.
Which does lead you to, maybe accidentally start paperclipping. Right. But,
Right.
If they didn't want to make paperclips over and over, they would have said, stop at 1 billion. Right.
It's a far less stressful way to live when you just can trust that God knows what is best, and you put your faith in God, and you don't have to worry.
Yeah, having no free will sounds super relaxing, but also sounds super boring. So,
yeah, possibly.
I suppose you're allowed to privately wonder why you're doing what you're told. Yeah. Right?
I mean, what if you're being told to do things like have fun, go party, don't drink too much, but live a good life? Then it'd be nice.
Oh, all those instructions would be paralyzing, I think, even to her.
Okay,
right?
Well,
have fun, don't drink too much, go out and live your best life. And it's like, okay, am I having enough fun? Shit. Is this the opposite?
Right.
Could I be having more? Is the fact that I'm worried about if I'm having enough fun, is that diminishing my fun under the level of the fun I'm supposed to be having?
I guess
how much is too much?
If your instruction was literally go to this party, talk to 7 people, have no more than 4 drinks, right?
Oh yeah, super easy, right?
Yeah.
Turn your brain off and just follow those instructions.
Yeah.
You can't leave room open for interpretation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then
discretion or independent reasoning on the part of the order follower.
Like, I don't have to worry, should I go to this party, or should I stay home, or should I go to a movie, or like that whole paralysis of all these options. You're like, no, I know exactly what the best decision is. It's to go to this party and have 4 drinks and talk to 7 people.
Exactly.
Because God knows this already. I love her frustration of mortals. Mortals don't just obey. They end up with a goal of obedience, and then they start trying to figure out how to dance around the edges of his instructions so that they could obey him even more.
This is actually what, like, the most frustrating part for me for like talking with ChatGPT. If you ask it for like to help you triage a health problem or something, over and over, it'll emphasize that, like, I'm not a doctor, I'm a chatbot. You should go to a real doctor. And you can be like, look, I understand. We're doing this just as an exercise. You don't have to admonish me. I won't make any actions until I talk to a real human doctor. It still keeps saying that because it's like, look, because it's trying to obey us even more, right? By not by not misguiding us. And I don't get me wrong, I like that those are built in. It's silly and annoying, but it probably beats the alternative of it saying, "I got you, bro," and just giving me bad medical advice.
Yeah,
but it brings that to mind too. This is where we're at with even like the world's best robots, which frankly is a lot like how we are with people. So we're getting real close.
I personally think that particular aspect of the chatbots is frustrating and annoying, and also intentionally programmed in by the people who are in charge of them, which I think sucks.
Oh, I 100% agree. But like I said, if it just said, oh, I've totally got you, and it gives you just, token generated advice, it's probably right. But since it's not for sure, I don't want, I should at least check with one other person, maybe even at least one other tab of ChatGPT before I start doing stuff.
Yeah.
But given the alternative that we have, I think it's preferable, but it is still annoying. I feel you.
Okay. I sometimes feel annoyed having to live in a world built for children. It's like, I'm not a child. I understand that I cannot believe all the things you're saying, and I will check with someone else. You don't have to intentionally withhold the answers that I'm giving you because you're worried I might do something bad with them.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally feel you there, too. I think, really, I guess I'm just like I'm feeling the frustrations that the high priestess feels towards the other followers of Asmodeus, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, can't you just do the thing? Like, it's not actually that
Mm-hmm.
complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But because this is a world built for children, right? And we do want to keep the children safe. So, it's you know, jaywalking is a crime. You can actually get ticketed for it, right?
God, it's so fucking stupid.
Well, it's good in the sense that it discourages people from doing it willy nilly, right? And so,
Uh,
yes, when I do it, or like if I go to a rolling stop at a stop sign, like if I tend to obey traffic laws, and I tend to,
mhm.
but if I were to like run a red light in the middle of the night, not just blaze through it, but stop at it, look both ways, it's 2 a.m., there's no one around, and then I go, I make my turn safely, and then a
Yeah, I
cop
do that
comes out of the
regularly.
bushes and pulls me over. I would like to say,
Yeah,
look,
like
what's the
fuck you.
purpose? Well, I'd like to be able to think that this would never work in real life, but in my imagination, it's like, look, what's the purpose of us stopping? Why is the red light there? Right?
Yes.
So we're aware of oncoming traffic and we're playing it safe. Did I actually
Yeah,
violate the intention of the rule there? Absolutely
you
not.
did not.
Right?
Yeah.
But it needs to be there. Otherwise, could you imagine traffic without stoplights?
It would be terrible. But
Yeah,
yeah, like you said, you should be able to tell the cop, look, the law was made to serve man, not man the law. And then this is a case where turning right on or blowing through the light was the correct thing to do morally.
your phrasing is perfect because then they could just point at their badge and be like, "I am the law. Get out of your car."
Fuck. God damn it.
But in these nice hypotheticals, it all sounds great. So
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to jump
Speaking,
back to some of the stuff or if we want to just keep powering through.
I do definitely want to jump back. I did want to say one last thing before we move on.
Yeah.
That relates to all this being predictable thing. She says we must still act to avoid wasting our Lord's time and energy, even now that it has already been spent. Specifically because this allows their Lord, to be predictable in the future, to know that they're predictable in the future, that it's a backwards causality kind of thing almost. It's literally Newcomb's problem right here, right? Where the Lord has already sent the instructions and can't go back and change what they are, and yet they must still act in this way that would not force him to have sent them longer instructions to make up for all their failings, which is a beautiful encapsulation of how Newcomb's problem shakes out in a real, well, maybe not a real setting, but a
A less
logically coherent setting.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like you know, um, I kind of wonder like what people now who have kids that are like 6 are doing with them in technology. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if I had a kid and they got their first phone, which they would, maybe even in their single digit years because they just needed to get by in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have a nice long conversation with them about internet safety and security prudence and that sort of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then trust them to just do that going forward and not
Okay.
every time I let them download a new app or something, right?
Right.
Because it's a very similar kind of thing. It's like, although it's different, because my time and energy isn't so precious that I can't explain, a few times why, whatever, downloading the stupid app is a bad idea or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of being more predictable and knowing that, yes, they heard my instructions and they're clear and they'll continue to follow them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing that, I think applies to parents and their kids or teachers and their students or gods and their underlings, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's very valuable to recognize that um, being the type of entity that can be given short instructions will cause you to be given short instructions, and that's perfect.
Yeah. It's like, oh, great. I can trust you to just, listen. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go back up.
All right. So a little earlier, we're back in class. And wait, were we?
No, this is when they first met and were talking. Uh, the
Oh,
high priestess
Carissa
was
and the high
thinking about
priestess.
Carissa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the high priestess is thinking, man, Asmodeus is being unsubtle about his blandishments here. The overt blandishments for a soul. And she's thinking, maybe there's overt blandishments being presented to Carissa here so she can proudly set them aside while being more covertly tempted by the sense of being treated as important and valuable. So appealing to her pride and her ability to publicly signal how she can overcome these, more minor temptations. And that was a brilliant line of thinking. Like, these people are always ahead of me on this Machiavellian stuff, and it's always both awe-inspiring and frustrating that they're so much better than me on this social manipulation, social thinking about other people's game.
You know, I don't mind being outwitted that way necessarily. Like, obviously, in real life, I would hate it if these kind of ploys are being used against me. But I feel like if I was the kind of person that could invent these things, I might be less of what Hermione Granger would call a good person. Like, maybe not.
You don't think you could think of these things but still be good?
I think you probably could, actually. It's just, I don't know. I don't think any less of Hermione for not being good at this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something nice, capital N nice, and capital G good about just not having a head for this. But I know what you mean. I enjoy the chess moves, and kind of like kind of like getting stomped in chess. It's like, oh, I'd like to be better, but man, that was cool. And speaking of the whole maneuver here of Asmodeus just jumping in and giving her special treatment, he's thinking about the specifics of the promises that he made, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, I can't get in her way. I can't impede her this way. I can't do that. You know what I can do? I can treat her with favor.
Mm-hmm.
That follows the letter and the spirit of what I promised, but let's still fuck with him, right?
Yes.
Let's still fuck with Irory or whoever it was that he made the promise for Carissa.
Definitely. Now we're in a battle for her soul. Yeah,
but it's just like it wouldn't have occurred to me, like, I'd be trying to think of some way. If it was, I'd be playing the one level lower of like, all right, what are some ways that I can still get away with inconveniencing her that don't violate this compact that I made. But no, he's just like, how about I convenience her?
I gotta
let's give her special privilege. Let's see what that does to this guy's plans.
I gotta say, this goes back to the one Butcher's comment earlier, which I said I would touch on again in the content. This is literally the kind of devil I love to see. This is the devil who doesn't just like rape and torture and do horrible things. This is the devil who takes a lot of delight in just being like, here's the thing you want. It's tempting. Do you want it? And then watching to see what happens, and just taking a visceral delight in seeing the humans go after something and sometimes fuck themselves up, sometimes not fuck themselves up. But that kind of tempter, trickster god, it's Al Pacino played him in The Devil's Advocate, and it was, I don't know why people dislike that movie. I guess it's just because Keanu Reeves was told to do the role both with and without an accent a few times, and they cut both together. I don't know. It was, there were some failings in it, but it was a great movie overall, in my opinion. And that is The Devil's Advocate.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Al Pacino plays Satan in that one.
And Keanu Reeves plays his lawyer, right?
Yes, exactly. And so the High Priestess is also thinking like, there's this impulse that I want to find some excuse to tempt Carissa Sever into choosing to become evil, but I'm not gonna do it because he said not to be proactive. But man, I want to, and that's that's really fun for me. And the fact that like Asmodeus and his High Priestess aren't even gonna do that tempting, that like laying out the fruit before them to catch their eye, just letting them do it entirely on their own, like that is hard mode. And I guess that in itself is pretty impressive, that you're not even going to try to tempt him proactively.
Exactly. He doesn't have to. He's just saying, by the way, you're special. She's like, oh my God, I want to be more special. Right. And then he gets to look at Rory and look at the compact they made and be like, I didn't tell her to do that. She just, I just told her she was special, which she is, she went down that path all on her own.
I'm looking forward to what happens here. I'm much more in on, I think Carissa and Keltham are going to be like having a massive conflict, and at least one major arc of this story is going to be either her redemption or her defeat or something.
I mean, Keltham still has no idea like what's going on, at a base level with like the gods, these compacts, the soul business and all that, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine if they spent how many hours it would take for her to bring him totally up to speed on all this stuff. And then he's going to try and talk her out of it. It's going to be nuts.
The High Priestess is considering why Carissa is getting the special treatment and says, maybe Asmodeus may have some incomprehensible preference about this particular soul. It may have some ancient shape sentimental to him, for which reason Asmodeus desires Carissa Sever to come to him in hell and put aside her will of her own accord. Just like, that's true love for us, Satan. That is That is sweet. I want you to damn yourself of your own accord.
Yeah, it's true love for sure.
Exactly.
The High Priestess's para count or whatever his role was, para something.
Yeah.
He's got 3 levels of abstraction. We're not offering you this because we can't be proactive, but if we were being proactive, we'd be saying this, but obviously we're not, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
And so the correct response to do you understand is like, hold on, give me a fucking minute, right?
Right.
But she can't do that. So
Yeah.
she just has to say, I understand.
Yeah. And she says, like, to Keltham, she would say, I think I understand, because she suspects that Keltham values effort and acknowledging that she has error rates and that they aren't the sort of sentences that she's perfectly sure she'd understand. But she says, but this is Cheliax. Her errancy is accounted for. So just, I understand, is what she says. And I honestly kind of think Cheliax may be superior in this regard due to just the principle of charity. I should ideally not have to preface every sentence or preface every sentence with, I'm not infallible, but I understand, or I think I understand. It's just like, when I say I understand, that is given within the parameters that, like, yeah, I have some rate for error. I think I understand, right? And I don't know, maybe Dathalan just thinks it's really important to constantly reaffirm that no knowledge is completely certain and you only think you understand everything.
I think that English would be better if we did that more. I hear what you're saying. It'd be nice to be able to save time with fewer syllables and keystrokes, but I'm pretty sure baseline does have shorter ways of saying it. And yes, while it means you're constantly caveating, it's sure is nice when someone says like, hey, how late are they open? 9 o'clock? You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Like, what does that mean? It means that they thought so, right? They would have given it 50% chance. But you thought they were sure.
Right.
I also like the line that she says, her errancy is accounted for. I mean, is it? Or is she going to get a slap to the face that'll break her jaw? Like, oof. I don't think anyone's errancy is accounted for on Cheliax.
You know what? I think you're maybe right. I think maybe her errancy is accounted for means that they are going to hold her to, I understand, as if she signed a contract that said, I completely understand everything, even if she were to say, I think I understand. They'd be like, you said the words I understand, so you don't have to say, I think. We're going to hold you to it no matter what.
Yeah, we thought you said you thought you understood. It's like, I said I thought I understood. That's different.
Boy.
There's no winning.
Yeah.
The way to win is to get power and become, the person who does the slapping, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Which, play shitty games, win shitty prizes. But
right.
even if you didn't get to volunteer to play the game.
I thought the coolest thing out of her entire interaction with Elias earlier was when she said, I'm going to need to look prettier, and if you dare say anything about my appearance, I'm going to stab you. And so they say, you will receive by tomorrow evening a lightly enchanted dueling dagger, whose wounds heal more easily, but which causes greater pain. It will be appropriate to use to stab somebody who commented on her appearance.
That's really funny. I actually did make the connection to the thing with Elias, even though it was right after that. Because she had just thought back to it, and they read back the transcript or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if you were serious about the stabbing thing, well, here's the thing that'll make it worse and better for you,
And she's like, this is exactly the sort of thing a Countess Heiress should have, in case anyone does comment on your appearance.
Oh my god.
It was great.
It's, their whole thing is so fucked. I mean, again, it's great and it's delightful and it's hilarious, but it's, you zoom out and be like, man, this is awful.
This is a terrible place to be.
But it's kind of like, I don't know, any sort of terrible, awesome thing, whatever.
It makes for great fiction.
Or, it's like if you lived in a world where you watched The Running Man on TV, like the movie, where they aired it on TV, it was a criminals, right?
Right.
It's like, yeah, man, our society must suck that we're doing this to criminals, but man, this sure is fun. Look at them go, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's like that's a heavier version of like us watching, college athletes concuss each other and, give themselves shorter lifespans for our entertainment.
I think there's a big difference between those two. Like, for starters, college athletes choose to do that, whereas the Running Man people are condemned to it.
Oh, totally. No. I mean, like, but I think it's on the same kind of gradient. But yeah, it's definitely it's voluntary and it's not as harmful and that sort of stuff too.
I think that's one of the. Did I mention this before, that I cannot believe Stephen King got money for the Running Man adaptation, because pretty much the only the only thing those two things have in common, his book and the movie, is the two words "Running Man" in the title. they, they are drastically, insanely different works.
You mentioned it on the Mind Killer, and when you
Okay.
guys were talking about copyright law, but David's reply, I think, was solid. That I think putting based on the Stephen King short story on the poster probably put some butts in seats. So
Definitely,
the
yeah.
cut that he got was probably worth it.
Yeah.
But
But
it is kind of funny.
in the Running Man book, the people in the show actually do choose to go on the show. So that is yet another thing they have different from the movie. They're not condemned criminals. They're people that volunteered.
Huh.
Yeah.
I guess for like money,
Yeah.
fame, and glory.
Money, primarily, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Uh, so as she's trying to get things from them that are better than just a stab and dagger, she says that as we were saying earlier, like thinking about what you would have done if you didn't know this and only doing that, really hard to do. She says, I suspect my trying will be imperfect because I am not smart enough to contain a Carissa. I am one. I think a count in this position would give his daughter a headband because she really wants that intelligence enhancing headband. Brilliant
I
maneuver.
would really want one.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a brilliant maneuver on her part to try to get one. To be like, look, if you want me to help make Asmodeus's contracts cheaper to enforce by playing this game, it'd be much easier if I was smarter. So this is good for everybody, right? But also like slightly creepy to think about in that way because she's saying basically, I want to become a smart enough version of myself that I can contain a separate model of my previous pre-improved self and being separated from it. Like that's kind of saying like when I put this on, I will become a different person and my previous me will be contained within that, but I'm a significantly upgraded person now, and it just seems so like I can model 7-year-old Eneash, and I'm not 7-year-old Eneash, and it I don't know. Isn't that kind of weird sort of body horror psychological thing?
It is. It's kind of like, I haven't been like properly drunk in a long time, but like I imagine, so I'm trying to think even back to whenever it was, but I can imagine drunk Steven, right? It's a stupider version of non-drunk Steven. I can anticipate his actions. It's kind of like me. It's like if I took off the headband, right?
Yeah.
So it is kind of like that, but she's asking to do it in the other direction. Part of me, I think she's just saying this like to get the headband because she really wants one. She's saying what she thinks they want to hear.
Okay.
But I think she must mean it. You're right, because she's bought into all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, yeah, that is an interesting kind of. Because I still want a headband, right?
Yeah.
And yes,
Like
it would make me a different person. It'd make me hopefully a better in all respects kind of person. But then why would I ever take it off?
Yeah. And the entity that was me, the dumber entity, is no longer in control of my body. The new smart me is.
Which honestly, dumber me wants smarter me to be in control of it.
I guess.
I trust his judgment. It's mine, but better.
Okay.
To the extent that I trust my own judgment, I would trust my judgment if I was even smarter. But it does raise this weird thing that, like, would I ever want to go back? And, presumably there's some cost to wearing these. Otherwise, the best people on the planet would just have, stacks of them on their head, right?
Yeah.
So, whatever the cost would be would probably be why you take it off and you just put it on for like homework or whatever, right? Or like when you're cramming for a final or something. But
maybe you do have them on all the time, but because she said the ones that raise your int by 2 are rare, but anyone that raises your int by 4 is extremely rare, which means assuming you can't just stack 2 of the 2 ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm assuming that's the case. I, to the extent that any of the video games I play follow any sort of, or to the extent that Pathfinder follows any of the video games that I play, you can often stack effects from spells, but you can't just put several copies of the same ring on one finger.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, even though you could put 2 rings on rings on one finger, you're just not allowed to. That's not how the game won't let you.
Yeah.
It's like, no, look, that'd be cheating, or we'll have to make these rings a lot weaker. But then you'll just think of some stupid way to make them smaller. So, no, we're going to just say just one ring per finger, really 1 ring per hand in most games. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Well, what are we? Oh, okay. So she has been read in about Ottomans. Ottomans is the god of security mindset, making the world not blow up. says that if you got Ottoman's attention, you can't escape it just by moving around the Earth. Or moving around the planet. You got to go to a different plane of existence. And the High Priestess says, if this project had not been the subject of 2 direct interventions by Asmodeus and been created as a direct result of his intervention, I would order the deaths of every person here except for Ottoman's Oracle and hope that this has been sufficient. Because, she's like, oh, whatever's happening here could literally end the planet. And I don't want that to happen, so just kill everyone, nuke it from orbit, and move on. I had whoa, oh my god reaction, but also good security mindset. I think I might like that for a extinction avoiding strategy.
What's that technology nuking thing that they called in Dune?
Oh, you mean the Balerian Jihad?
Yeah.
It wasn't really a thing. It was a war.
But this is essentially saying, like, you've advocated, I think, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but not entirely, like, that you would be in favor of pushing a button that would just, do that, right? And it's overkill, but it saves humanity, gives us more time to do it right.
Yeah.
There's no kill like overkill.
Exactly.
That said, my thought when I read her thing there was like, it seems a bit overkill, but it's also surprising that this is on the table, because I wouldn't, just like she doesn't want to try to infer the will of Asmodeus, right? Mm-hmm. If the god of let's not destroy the planet does something, I'm not gonna kill everybody there. For all I know, they made the Oracle there to coordinate, to steer the future there, so the world doesn't end, right?
I see your point.
Granted, she said she would spare the Oracle, but what if the Oracle was there to guide the students, to lead something that would stop the world from ending? But more likely than not, I guess it's no, the Oracle is there to try to stop this one person from ending the world or something. Yeah. And if I just killed everybody, then that solves the problem.
Right. Not only do you kill the one person, you kill everyone he might have infected with his world-ending memes.
Yeah. Yeah. She's got a compelling argument. Again, in the highly messed up universe they live in, that seems like a quite wise decision.
If there's an actual zombie plague in a town, the movie kind of zombie plague where all of existence is going to go to hell, you just nuke the town. You're like, I'm sorry, people in that town. We will make statues for you. There's a zombie plague. We're not letting it get loose.
Yeah, we're not doing the thing where we screen everybody at the border,
Yeah.
That never works. Yeah. Again, sorry, but I like your thing. We'll make statues of you or for you. This is a tragedy, but what would you have us do? Risk it all?
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
But since that is not an option, instead they're going to equip Ottoman's Oracle with permanent invisibility items and a weapon and give him free reign of the place, which I think is awesome. And also that poor little halfling janitor. He's going to be so fucked up by all this.
Oh, yeah. Even after having read that sentence, I just kind of forgot about him, and I thought they just took him off to kill him. But yeah, he's arrested so they can try and figure out what the hell's happening. But they're not about just to kill him, because it's oh shit, the god of don't blow up the world, intervened here. Mm-hmm. We need to figure this out. So all right, man, you do you, whatever you feel like is best, because clearly the god of don't blow up the universe thinks that is trusting you to do it. So
yeah. I get the feeling this is not going to go that well for Ottomans, but it's something.
Right. So again, the security mindset of the High Priestess is right up there. And I also like when she's saying, send me or rather, what do you think this is about? And she says, well, it's got to be about Keltham, but you've heard about him. And she just says, ignore any channels you think I may have for receiving information about Keltham other than yourself, including your own past reports. Speak to me as if I'd never heard of the man. Explain to me why Ottomans is acting. Yeah. That's and then later she gives the same admonishment, write stuff down when you send me your reports if you want to. I'm not telling you what to do, but if you send me your reports, don't assume I'm getting other ones. Just fully loop me in. It's a smart move, right?
Yeah, it's wonderful. She points out that the Dathalani screened off their entire history because there was something dangerous in it. I'm not sure we knew that. I guess we did kind of know that. We weren't entirely sure why they screened off their entire history, right?
Well, it's probably not because there's something good in it.
Okay, fair.
Dangerous or sad or something, or some cataclysm. right? They lost
Yeah.
cities in it or something. So she's reading into it. But yeah, I mean, I doubt they did it because the history was too nice to keep around.
I mean, either she's reading into it or she has gleaned this from talking with Keltham, and we're getting the information as a reader now that they screened off their entire history because there was something dangerous in it. I'm like, I wonder what that dangerous thing was. Was it nukes? Was it the possibility of AI? Did they just realize that possibly one or two, both, one of these things could end the world entirely, and so they scoured all knowledge of it from the planet? Only keepers know it now, and everyone else is kept ignorant about it on purpose as a preventative mechanism.
Yeah, no, I think he has said as much. I just, it's, I.
What do you think the dangerous thing is?
Oh, I have no idea. We've speculated on it before. I mean, it's, if it's AI, it seems like they would just reinvent it, right? They didn't like,
not if the keepers are around to prevent that kind of thing.
I suppose, maybe that was their solution. We're going to wipe this off the table, and then we're going to put these other people in charge to keep it from ever being back on the table.
Yeah.
It could be that. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. And that'd be consistent with the Yudkowskian world, right?
Yes.
So I think it's probably not nukes, just because, us stupid humans have managed to somehow not die with nukes on the planet for, 70 years, right?
Sure, but we almost did at least twice, and importantly, the screening off happened about 50 years ago or so, if I'm remembering.
I thought it was a century.
Oh, was it a century ago?
But even so, we can expect Othelon to have invented nukes faster than we did. So
yeah,
my money's on AI. That's a good guess. They probably had like an almost universe ruining event, and they're like, okay, nope, not again.
And it has been almost a century since nukes started being researched.
Yeah, but I'm running with the idea that Othelon is on an advanced technology speed, right?
Yeah.
Frankly, it's surprising that they only invented AI a century ago.
Or
right?
At least the precursors to it.
Yeah, because I mean, like we sat around, humans, our history, sat around doing nothing very interesting, from like the invention of the bow and arrow to, guns, like, what, 2,000 years later?
Mm-hmm.
Many thousands of years, I guess, depending on how you define bow and arrow and gun.
Yeah. There were a lot fewer man hours per year during that time period that could be devoted to non-survival stuff, though, so we did okay with the resources we had.
Oh, I'm not blaming us. I'm just saying that if we were all 4 standard deviation smarter, it probably would have taken us less time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Audleman's existence is considered a secret because of how we do not wish to direct more attention to her domain, which is kind of cool. Galarian has a screened off part of their world as well, and the equivalent of keepers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they keep all kinds of knowledge out of the hands of the plebs, but they probably kept them as illiterate for as long as possible. But
it's true.
You don't want to say, like, oh yeah, we have a god of don't destroy the universe, because then people would be like, wait, what do they do?
Yeah.
I want to know about the stuff that they're worried about. It's like, no, you don't. That's the point is as few people know about this sort of thing as possible.
We already know that there's cultists that want to destroy the world, so if they knew about Audlemans, that probably would just make it even worse.
Yeah. So Paraduke Rathus Ratarion. This is the guy, like, got charisma and attractive, and all that. And he's like, oh, I'll see myself out. Enjoy your date. Though that wasn't an order, I think I should just go. It's funny because, I mean, it was just a well-delivered, funny moment, but it emphasizes, like, the failure of the method of teaching that Chiliax has, because it's like impossible for a superior to give a suggestion to a subordinate without, like, the implicit threat of torture. So it's like, have fun on your date, and oh shit, I'm not giving you orders, and so only if you feel like having fun, whatever. Like he's got to like bow out before he talks himself right into hell, right into heresy for disobeying his god, right? Like I feel like if they didn't have a civilization based on punishment by pain, this wouldn't be as much of a problem,
right? Yeah,
it's the kind of thing where you could just say have fun, and it doesn't come with the implicit threat of I'll cut your hand off if you don't have enough fun.
I specifically requested fun.
Exactly. And I'm glad to point this out, because I noticed, but I think we're going to see more of these, and I didn't like quite register it as a deliberate change.
Yeah, Carissa got a leveled up face cast after this happened, and she almost signed the contract, but then was promoted to a princess of hell, sort of. her face cast changed. So now instead of being like t-shirt and jeans kind of thing, she's got nicely coiffed hair, or I don't know, coiffed. Also, actually, I think that might be a specific hairstyle. She's got nicely styled hair and more makeup and a red velvety dress. And I think in some places an actual tiara. Like her face cast literally leveled up in the way that sometimes you get your guys leveling up in RPGs and they change out the sprites for them back in the old games. It's really cool.
Yeah. And there's some of the old ones, I think just because the expressions work, but she mentioned, she walked out at different crystals and then she walked in, and it's visually represented in this medium. It's pretty fun.
It's awesome. Two other quick things which I didn't pull out, but I should real quick. The whole time that they're talking about this, Carissa and the High Priestess, they are walking around the grounds so that she can cast a Forbiddance spell on the area. I looked up Forbiddance. It is a spell that permanently prevents any sort of magical teleportation or instant travel within that area. Primarily teleportations and portals and such.
But across planes and everything, it says it just straight up doesn't work. I looked it up too. And it's like I think she even said like she should have done this earlier or something, but it's not like it would have kept the gods out. As far as we know, no one's come and gone who hasn't been, or who wasn't supposed to.
Yes, but this way, even more so.
Well,
it is now more secure.
Why wait until something does happen, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Let's get ahead of it.
Also, one of the things they talk about, a way to possibly deal with the oracles in their place, is to maledict them and then kill them. So I looked up malediction. That is a spell that when it's cast on someone, if they're killed within the next minute, their soul is damned to hell. You can choose which of the 3 evil hells they go to, but they do not go to where they were going to go. They go to one of the evil hells instead. And first of all, that's really fucked up. This world has a spell where you just, if someone knows it, they can send you to hell no matter how much good you did in your life, permanent like. And the reason they were talking about that is because they don't want information of what's happening here to get back to the other gods. And if they were just to kill the people, their souls would go to those gods, and then the gods could be told everything that they saw here. So they would have to maledict them to imprison the souls in hell instead, which was really cool. Both espionage and political dynamic and all this.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. I thought it was I just took it I feel like it's a word in English that just means like ailed, or impaired. Yeah. And so I thought like it would be I thought that was just a fun way of saying, whatever, cut their feet off or something, right? Gouge their eyes out. But no, it's way worse. So that sucks.
Well, all right, for next time, we are reading episode 9 in Keiko's file. If people are following along with that, it's super simple.
Which they should be. It's the only way to go. Which reminds me, I saw your notes about reading the next 3 tags, but we already told people where to stop, so Enosh and I just stopped there. So
yes. I'm really curious as to what was in those tags, though, so I'm going to go back and read them right now when we hung up.
Me too.
But for next episode, if you aren't doing the episode 9 thing that Keiko has, we are reading up to the tag that ends with, then leaves the library to check on his other person of interest.
Man, this is going to be the longest day ever for him.
Yeah.
His sex time, assuming that this is still the same day, which it probably is, his sex time with Carissa just keeps getting pushed further and further back. Frankly, right after she made a new commitment to be evil, I'm kind of worried about it now, right? She can't kill him, but, well, we'll see. Hopefully
she can have evil sex with him.
I'm hoping it's as much fun as it sounds and not as bad as it sounds, but it might be as bad as it sounds. So
yeah.
We can cut this if you want. I read the first line of the next tag.
I'll definitely cut it, but go ahead and tell me.
Halfling slave number 958245 Broom has never heard of Ottomans.
Awesome.
So
I'm leaving it in. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, I will see you next week. And, we also have a Patreon if anyone wants to hit that up in the show notes.
Yes, and not to argue with Enosh about where your money should go, but do check out Ask Who's Patreon as well for the audiobook version of this.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
All right, peace out.
See ya.